You hear it all the time. "Oh, is that a Border Collie?" And the owner goes, "No, Australian Shepherd." Or the reverse. Every single time. And look, I get it. Both dogs are medium-sized, both herd, both come in Merle, both have that same slightly unhinged energy where they're staring at you like they're solving a math problem. I get the confusion, but mixing these two up is kind of like mixing up a violin and a fiddle. Same instrument, technically, completely different music. Border Collies come out of the Scottish-English border region. Centuries of sheep work on open hills, harsh weather, massive flocks. These dogs were bred to work at distance, like a quarter mile from the handler sometimes, making decisions on their own. That's not a small thing. That shapes a brain. Australian Shepherds, and this trips people up, aren't even Australian. They were developed in the American West, probably from Basque herding dogs that came through Australia at some point, which is where the name stuck. But the breed as we know it, that's California ranches, mid-1900s. Rodeo culture, stock work with cattle, not just sheep. Tighter spaces, closer contact, rougher animals. So right away, you've got two dogs that were shaped by completely different jobs. One's a precision tool built for wide-open moorland. The other's a versatile ranch hand who needed to do a bit of everything: herd, guard, keep up with horses, not get kicked in the head by a cow. And that difference in origin, it echoes through everything. Temperament, drive, how they bond with people, how they fall apart when they're bored, which, trust me, both of them absolutely will. A Border Collie in motion is one of the weirdest things you'll see in the dog world. They drop low, I mean really low, almost reptilian, and they creep toward the sheep with this fixed, locked-in stare. That's the eye. Strong eye, they call it. It's a modified predatory sequence, the stalk without the kill, and it's so intense that sheep just move. No barking, no nipping, just pure pressure from a gaze.
It's honestly a little unsettling if you're not used to it. Aussies don't do that. Or, okay, some do a version of it, but it's not the hallmark of the breed. Aussies are what you'd call loose-eyed. They use their whole body. They bark, they bump, they get in there.
Where a Border Collie controls a flock like a chess player, an Aussie's more like a bouncer. Effective, but louder about it. And this matters way beyond herding, because these instincts don't just disappear when you put the dog in a suburb. A Border Collie with no sheep will find something to stalk. Could be birds, could be cars, could be your kids running in the backyard, and suddenly the 4-year-old's getting herded into a corner and nobody knows why. Aussies channel it differently. They're more likely to shadow you around the house, kind of manage you. Follow you room to room, nudge you if you're not where they think you should be. It's less eerie, more bossy. The structure's different too. Border Collies are leaner, lighter, built for speed and stamina over distance. Aussies are stockier, more compact, lower center of gravity, which makes sense if your job involves dodging hooves. A Border Collie looks like it was designed in a wind tunnel. An Aussie looks like it was designed to not get knocked over. Merle throws people off more than anything else with these two breeds. You see a blue Merle dog with a medium build, and you go, that could be either one. And honestly, fair. But Merle's not a breed marker, it's a coat pattern. Both breeds carry it, both look amazing in it, and both have serious health risks tied to it if you breed two Merles together, which that's a whole thing I could rant about, but not right now. Color-wise, Border Collies actually come in way more variety than most people think. Black and white's the classic, the one everyone pictures. But they come in red, blue, sable, lilac, brindle even. The AKC allows basically anything. Aussies are more restricted. You've got your black, red, blue Merle, red Merle, usually with white and copper markings. The palette's tighter, but the patterns are showier, if that makes sense. coat texture is where you can actually tell them apart at a glance once you know what to look for. Border Collies come in two types: rough coat, that's the longer, feathered look, and smooth coat, which is shorter and slicker. Smooth coat Border Collies get mistaken for entirely different breeds sometimes. Aussies pretty much always have that medium-length double coat with the thick ruff around the neck. And the tail. Actually, this is a big one. Aussies are often born with a natural bobtail, or they're docked. Border Collies almost always have a full, low-carried tail. So if you see a Merle dog with no tail and a stocky build, probably an Aussie. Full tail, lighter frame, that slightly obsessive stare, Border Collie. It's not foolproof, but it gets you like 87% of the way there. Both these dogs will herd your kids. I just want to get that out of the way. They'll herd your cat, your roommate, probably your Roomba if it moves in a straight line long enough. That instinct is baked in. It's not a quirk, it's the whole operating system. But the way they herd, totally different. And honestly, that difference tells you almost everything you need to know about which one belongs in your life. Border Collies are precision instruments. They work with what's called strong eye, this intense, locked-in stare that can literally stop a sheep mid-stride. It's kind of unsettling the first time you see it. The dog drops low, freezes, and just pins the animal with its eyes. They control livestock through pressure and release, micro-adjustments, these tiny, calculated movements. It's chess. That's the best way I can describe it. Aussies work bigger, looser. They're more physical. They'll bump a cow, nip a heel, use their body to block and redirect. Less, I will stare into your soul, and more, I'm gonna get in your way until you go where I want. They're thinking too, don't get me wrong, but it's a different kind of thinking, more reactive, more adaptable on the fly. So, what does that mean for you sitting on your couch, no sheep in sight? It means the Border Collie needs a job with structure, rules, repetition it can master. The Aussie needs a job too, but it's more flexible about what that job looks like. A Border Collie without a task gets neurotic. An Aussie without a task gets creative. And creative is not the word you want describing what happened to your couch cushions. Some Aussies are born without tails, natural bobtail. It's a genetic thing, tied to a gene called the T-box mutation, and roughly 1 in 5 Aussies carry it. So you'll see some with full tails, some with stubs, some with basically nothing back there. And then a lot of breeders dock the rest, which is a whole other conversation I'm not going to get into right now. Border Collies, full tail, always. Long, low set, usually with a little upward curve at the end, kind of like a question mark when they're alert. And if you watch one work, that tail is doing something. It drops when they're focused, tucks when they're creeping in on stalk, lifts slightly when they're about to change direction. It's like a mood ring you can read from 30 feet away. The Aussie tail situation, or lack of one, actually matters more than people think. There's decent research suggesting that dogs use tail position and movement as a major part of how they communicate with other dogs. A docked or absent tail can make social signaling harder. Not impossible, just less clear. It's like trying to read someone's body language when they're wearing a parka. You can still pick up on stuff, but you're missing information. And I think this is one of those places where the breed standard and the actual dog are kind of at odds. The AKC standard for Aussies basically says the tail should be docked or naturally bobbed, no longer than 4 inches. But a growing number of countries, most of Europe, Australia ironically, have banned cosmetic docking entirely. So you've got this weird split where the correct Aussie in an American show ring would be technically illegal in the country the breed is named after, which, I mean, that's a little funny, right? On paper, the Aussie's bigger, Males run about 20 to 23 inches at the shoulder, 50 to 65 pounds. Border Collies are a touch smaller, 18 to 22 inches, 30 to 45 pounds, give or take. But here's the thing, those numbers lie a little. Because there's so much variation within both breeds, especially once you start comparing working lines to show lines, that you can absolutely find a Border Collie that outweighs a small Aussie. Showline Aussies in particular have gotten thick. Heavier bone, broader chest, more coat. A working Aussie from ranch stock looks like a completely different animal. Leaner, tighter, more leg under them. Same thing's happening with Border Collies, actually, just less dramatically. The show ring rewards a certain look, and that look doesn't always match what the dog was built to do. Stamina, though, this is where it gets real. Border Collies are endurance machines. I've read accounts of working Border Collies covering, and this sounds insane, up to 50 miles in a single day on a hill farm. 50. They run low, they run efficient, and they just don't stop. The Aussies no slouch, obviously, but they were bred for a slightly different gig, more burst work, moving cattle through pens, working a rodeo arena, shorter, intense efforts with breaks in between. So if you're a runner or cyclist looking for a dog that'll match your long Saturday miles, the Border Collie's got a real edge. If you want a dog that's down for a hard hour at the park, and then, and this is key, actually willing to chill afterward, the Aussie's more likely to give you that. Not guaranteed, but more likely. The Border Collie's off switch is, well, it's more of a dimmer, and someone lost the knob. Border Collies top every single smartest dog breeds list ever made. And honestly, those lists are kind of garbage. They're mostly based on Stanley Coren's research from the 90s, which measured how fast a dog learned a new command. And yeah, Border Collies crushed it. 5 repetitions or fewer to learn something new. 95% obedience on the first ask. Aussies came in at number 42, which, 42's not bad, but it's not 5, so case closed, right? Not even close. Because what Coren was really measuring was biddability. How eager is this dog to do what you asked? And Border Collies are almost pathologically biddable. They want the task, they need the task. You say sit, they're already sitting before you finish the word. Aussies are smart in a different gear. They're problem solvers, but they'll check with themselves first before they check with you. There's a beat of, yeah, but should I though? Which, if you're scoring obedience speed, looks like being dumber. It's not. I've read about working Aussies on ranches who basically run the whole operation with minimal commands. They read the stock, they read the terrain, they make judgment calls. That's intelligence. It's just not the kind that shows up on a parlor trick test. And Border Collies? Look, they're genuinely brilliant. Chaser, that Border Collie who learned over 1,000 words, that's real. That happened. But there's a flip side nobody talks about. A dog that's smart with nothing to do doesn't just get bored. It gets inventive. And not in a fun way. In a I disassembled your couch because I was solving a problem that doesn't exist way. So smarter? Depends what you mean by smart. But the honest answer is they're both operating at a level most breeds can't touch. You want to see the real difference between these two dogs? Forget the coat colors, forget the size, forget everything people argue about online. Watch them work sheep. A Border Collie drops into this low crouch, almost like a cat stalking something, and just stares. That's the eye. Strong eye, they call it. And it's not a gimmick. The sheep feel it. They move away from that gaze like it's a physical force. The dog barely moves, and the flock shifts. It's honestly kind of eerie when you see good footage of it. The dog controls 100-yard space with its eyes, and like micro adjustments in posture. That's centuries of breeding for one specific thing. Aussies herd completely differently. They're what you'd call loose-eyed. They use their whole body. They'll bump a sheep, bark at it, get right up in its space. They're louder, they're closer, they're more physical about the whole thing. Less chess, more rugby. And that's not worse, by the way. It's just a different job. Aussies were bred for rougher stock on American ranches, cattle, not just sheep. You don't move a 1,200-pound steer with a stare. You move it by being annoying enough that it decides you're not worth dealing with. And this matters way beyond the pasture, because those instincts don't turn off at home. Your Border Collie's gonna stalk the kids. Not aggressively, just that fixed, intense tracking thing. It's weird if you're not expecting it. Your Aussie is gonna hip-check people in the hallway and try to physically redirect your toddler away from the stairs. Different dogs, same ancient software running in the background. The breed you pick kinda depends on which version of "my dog is being a weirdo" you can live with. Both of these dogs need a lot. I want to get that out of the way immediately. If you're looking for a "which one's the easier pet" answer, it's neither. Go get a basset hound, seriously. But, and this is a real but, they're exhausting in different ways, and that difference matters more than people think. Border Collies need a job, not exercise, a job. You can run a Border Collie for 2 hours, and it'll come home, take a 20-minute nap, and then stare at you like, okay, what are we doing now? Physical exercise alone doesn't scratch the itch. They need structured mental work, agility courses, trick training, actual herding if you can swing it. The requirement is cognitive, and it's basically daily. Skip it for a few days, and you'll know. Your walls will know. Aussies are high energy too, obviously, but they're more satisfiable? That's not a word, but it should be. A good hike, a long game of fetch, some training, and an Aussie will actually settle. They have an off switch. It's very deep and you have to earn it, but it exists. Border Collies, the off switch is more like a myth that breeders tell you about to close the sale. The other thing, Aussies are Velcro dogs. They follow you room to room, they sit on your feet, they need to be near you constantly. Which sounds cute for about 3 days, until you realize you can't go to the bathroom alone anymore. Border Collies bond hard too, but there's more independence there. They're obsessed with the work, not necessarily with you, which, depending on your personality, is either a relief or kind of insulting. Pick your poison. Both of these dogs will reorganize your entire life. They'll just do it differently. Border Collies top every single smartest dog breeds list ever made. Every one. And people take that and run with it. Like, oh, they're the Einstein of dogs. Case closed. But here's what that ranking actually measures. It measures how fast a dog learns a new command and how reliably it follows that command. That's obedience. That's not intelligence. Or, okay, it's a kind of intelligence, but it's a very specific kind, and the distinction matters, because Aussies are wicked smart too. They just express it differently. An Aussie will learn sit in 2 reps, same as a Border Collie. But then it'll decide when sit applies. It'll read the room. It'll go, yeah, I know what you want, but I think we should do this other thing instead. And honestly, that's also intelligence. That's judgment. It's just not the kind that scores well on a Stanley Coren test. Border Collies are more biddable. That's the word trainers use. Biddable. Means they want to do the thing you asked. They get a hit of satisfaction from executing, which makes them insanely good at obedience trials, agility, anything with precise commands and fast repetition. They're like the kid who aces every test because they genuinely love the structure of the test. Aussies are more like the kid who gets a B+ because they were busy building something in the back of the classroom. Still smart, maybe smarter in some ways, but less interested in doing the trick just because you asked nicely. Now, both breeds will destroy you if you're a lazy trainer. I mean that. A bored Border Collie will invent its own job, and you will not like the job it picks. A bored Aussie will just remodel your house from the inside. Aussies follow you to the bathroom. I'm not exaggerating. They will press their nose against the door if you close it. They're called Velcro dogs for a reason, and the reason is they physically cannot handle being in a different room than you. It's endearing for about a week, and then you realize you haven't been alone since you brought this dog home. Border Collies are obsessive too, but the obsession is usually pointed at a task: a ball, a flock, a shadow on the wall. Don't laugh, there are Border Collies with genuine shadow-chasing compulsions. It's a real behavioral issue. Their fixation lands on work, not on you, which sounds cold, but it's not. And this creates really different problems. Aussie people deal with separation anxiety, like real separation anxiety, not just some whining at the door. We're talking destructive, panicky, will chew through drywall anxiety. It's one of the most common behavioral complaints with the breed. Border Collie people deal with obsessive-compulsive behaviors. The light chasing, the tail spinning, the fixation on a single stimulus that just locks in and won't release. Both of these are stress responses, by the way. Neither dog handles boredom well, but the shape of the breakdown is different. The Aussie falls apart because you left. The Border Collie falls apart because there's nothing to do. So the question you gotta ask yourself, and I know this sounds weird, is which flavor of neurotic can you live with? Because if you're getting either of these breeds, you're signing up for a dog with a very active inner life. That's the deal. Aussies are, and I sort of hate this phrase, but it's accurate, natural family dogs. They slot into a household with kids pretty well, partly because that Velcro thing works in your favor here. They want to be near the kids. They want to be near everyone. They're social in this big, goofy, slightly pushy way that most families actually love. Border Collies can be great with kids too, but there's a catch, and it's a real one. Herding instinct doesn't just turn off indoors. And small kids, running, screaming, moving in unpredictable patterns, that's basically a flock of very poorly behaved sheep to a Border Collie's brain. So you get the nipping, the circling, the stare. It's not aggression. It's not even misbehavior in their mind. It's their job activating in the wrong context. But try explaining that to a 4-year-old who just got nipped on the ankle. With other pets, Aussies are generally fine. They can be a little bossy. They'll try to manage the cat. But it's more like middle management energy, not predatory energy. Border Collies vary more. Some are great. Some will herd the cat into a corner and just hold it there, staring, for 20 minutes. Which the cat predictably does not enjoy. I think the honest answer is that Aussies are the safer default for a family with young kids. Not because Border Collies are bad family dogs, plenty of them are fantastic, but because the margin for error is wider with an Aussie. You have to be more deliberate with a Border Collie in a family setting, more aware of what's triggering the herding drive, more willing to redirect, and not every family wants a dog that comes with homework. Okay, I'm going to be honest. Neither of these dogs belongs in an apartment, but if someone put a gun to my head and said pick one, I'd say the Aussie, and even then I'd feel bad about it. Border Collies in small spaces just break. Not physically, mentally. They start inventing jobs, herding the cat, herding your socks, staring at the washing machine like it owes them money. I've read accounts from people who tried the apartment thing with a Border Collie, and every single one sounds like a hostage negotiation by month 3. The dog isn't being bad. The dog is being exactly what it was bred to be, a working animal with no work to do. That's on you. Aussies aren't great in apartments either, but they've got a slightly different wiring. They're more people-oriented. Like a Border Collie needs a task. An Aussie needs you, which means if you're home a lot and you're committed to 2 solid hours of exercise a day, real exercise, not a stroll around the block, an Aussie can maybe, possibly, with a lot of effort, tolerate a smaller space. Maybe. But here's what nobody tells you. It's not the size of the apartment, it's the stimulation. A Border Collie in a 3-bedroom house with nothing to do is worse off than an Aussie in a studio with a dedicated owner who runs 5 miles a day and does trick training every evening. The space is almost irrelevant. It's the brain that needs the room. So yeah, if you live in an apartment and you're dead set on one of these 2 breeds, and I kinda think you shouldn't be, at least pick the one that won't reorganize your furniture out of spite. Both of these dogs have double coats, and if you don't know what that means yet, you will. You will know it in your couch cushions and your car seats, and that one black shirt you thought you could still wear. The Border Collie comes in 2 coat types, rough and smooth. Rough is the long, flowing, that dog looks majestic coat. Smooth is shorter, closer to the body, way easier to manage. Most people picture the rough coat. Most people also don't realize the smooth coat sheds nearly as much. It's just shorter hair, so it's slightly less dramatic. Slightly. Aussies have 1 coat type, and it's a lot. Medium length, thick, water-resistant undercoat, and it blows out, meaning it sheds in massive clumps twice a year, spring and fall. Those 2 windows are genuinely absurd. Like, you'll brush your Aussie and pull out enough fur to build a second dog. That's not a joke, that's a Tuesday. Border Collies shed more consistently year-round. Less of a seasonal explosion, more of a steady drizzle. Pick your poison. Grooming-wise, you're brushing either dog 2 to 3 times a week minimum. During blowout season for the Aussie, daily. And never, I cannot stress this enough, never shave a double-coated dog. The undercoat regulates temperature in both directions. Shaving it doesn't cool them down. It just wrecks the coat, and sometimes it doesn't even grow back right. Between the 2, the Aussie is probably a little more high maintenance on grooming just because of that undercoat density. But honestly, if shedding is a deal breaker for you, neither of these is your dog. Get a poodle. I say that with love. Border Collies have this thing called Collie Eye Anomaly, CEA, which is a genetic defect in the development of the eye. It ranges from basically harmless to, in rare cases, causing blindness. A good breeder tests for it. A bad breeder doesn't mention it. There's also TNS, trapped neutrophil syndrome, which is a fatal immune disorder that shows up in puppies. It's rare, but it exists. And it's the kind of thing you should be asking about before you hand someone $1,500 for a puppy. Aussies get hit with their own list. The big one is the MDR1 gene mutation, about 40 to 50. Get your Aussie tested. Both breeds are prone to hip dysplasia and epilepsy. That's pretty standard for medium to large herding dogs. Not fun, but not unusual. The one that gets me, though, is the Merle to Merle breeding issue, and it hits both breeds. When you breed 2 Merle pattern dogs together, there's a 25% chance of producing what's called a double Merle, and those puppies are often deaf, blind, or both. It's completely preventable. You just don't breed Merle to Merle, and yet people still do it because the coat pattern sells. That makes me genuinely angry, and I don't think I need to explain why. Eye problems, drug sensitivities, and a coat color gene that can cause serious birth defects if you're careless. These are things you ask a breeder about before you fall in love with a puppy photo on Instagram. Border Collies tend to live longer. That's the data. Average lifespan sits around 12 to 15 years, with a lot of well-bred ones pushing past 14 pretty comfortably. Aussies come in a bit shorter, 12 to 13 on average, sometimes 15, but 13's more typical. And look, a year or 2 doesn't sound like much on paper, But when you're actually living with a dog, when that dog is 11 and slowing down and you're doing the math in your head, a year is a lot. 2 years is enormous. The bigger issue, and this is where it gets kind of grim, is what aging looks like in each breed. Border Collies tend to stay sharp mentally for a long time. Their bodies go first, hips, joints, the usual stuff, but the brain stays on, which is a weird blessing and a weird curse, because you've got a dog that still wants to work, still wants to think, but physically can't keep up anymore. That's a hard thing to watch. Aussies, on the other hand, have a higher rate of certain cancers, lymphoma, hemangiosarcoma, and they also deal with epilepsy more than people realize. The MDR1 gene mutation is a real thing in Aussies. About 40 to 50% of them carry it. It makes them dangerously sensitive to common medications, ivermectin, certain sedatives, some chemo drugs. Your vet should know about it, but not all of them flag it automatically. Get the test done. It's cheap. Both breeds deal with hip dysplasia, eye problems, collie eye anomaly in Border Collies, cataracts in Aussies. Progressive retinal atrophy shows up in both. None of this is rare. None of this is a reason not to get one, but it's the stuff nobody puts in the Instagram caption. A well-bred Border Collie puppy from health-tested parents runs you about $1,500 to $2,500. Aussies are roughly the same, sometimes a little more, especially if you're buying from a reputable breeder with full OFA clearances and genetic panels. That's not the expensive part. The expensive part is everything after. Both of these dogs need a job, and if you don't give them one, they'll find one. Usually it involves your couch, your baseboards, or, I've read about this more than once, your drywall. Mental stimulation for a bored working dog isn't optional. It's damage prevention. So you're looking at puzzle toys, training classes, maybe agility equipment if you go that route. That adds up. Vet costs are average-ish for medium-sized dogs, unless something genetic shows up. And with both breeds, something genetic showing up isn't exactly a long shot. An MDR1 test for an Aussie is like $60 to $80. Hip and elbow evaluations run a few hundred. Eye exams, annual. If you skip the screenings to save money, you're just rolling dice on a way bigger bill later. Grooming's moderate for both. Neither needs professional grooming the way a poodle does, but they shed. Oh, they shed. Aussies arguably worse because of the thicker undercoat. Budget for a decent vacuum. I'm not kidding. I've seen people say their Dyson was their most important dog-related purchase. And honestly, I kind of believe them. Food, insurance, routine vet visits, the occasional emergency, you're looking at somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 a year, minimum, for either breed. The real cost difference between them isn't at the register, it's in time. These dogs will bankrupt your schedule before they bankrupt your wallet. Okay, I'm gonna be a little blunt here. If you're comparing these two breeds because you think they're basically the same dog and you just need to pick a color, you're starting in the wrong place. They're not the same dog. They come from different working traditions, they think differently, they move differently, they bond differently. Border Collies are specialists. They do one thing, herd, and they do it with this scary, almost obsessive focus. That translates into everyday life. A Border Collie in a house is a dog that locks onto tasks, onto patterns, onto you. They watch everything. They learn your schedule. They anticipate. It's impressive and a little unsettling, honestly. If you want a dog that feels like a partner in some kind of ongoing project, that's a Border Collie. Aussies are generalists. They were bred to do a bunch of things on a ranch. Herd, guard, fetch, follow, figure it out. They're more adaptable, more social in a chaotic way, more bouncy? That's a terrible word for it, but it kind of fits. An Aussie's going to be your buddy. A Border Collie's going to be your coworker. So the question isn't which breed is better, it's which dog matches the life you actually live. Not the life you're planning to live once you get your act together, but the one happening right now. Be honest about your schedule, your space, your patience for a dog that's smarter than your last roommate and twice as neurotic. Both of these breeds will give you everything they've got. The least you can do is make sure you've got enough to give back.